Progress continues in our TEW IX Local to Global journey through the dawn of the wrestling industry. A vengeful crew has turned things upside down in the heavyweight division, and our junior heavyweights will be subject of a groundbreaking match type for its time. Can our company take the next step to global recognition? Welcome back, everyone. We've got a lot to unpack here in this episode. We've got a big episode ahead of us, and we've got a big fallout from the previous episode, the newest stable that has arrived to the Wrestling Association of the Mid-South, the Dark Carnival. Let's just check out some of the faces that have been refreshed with this stable. Of course, we got Bryant Hines. He is more of the leader of the group, the mouthpiece, and he really is not very safe. So I'm going to keep him out of the ring, and he's going to remain that mouthpiece, and he's actually the only member of this group that did not receive a new headshot picture. And of course, Black Bull, you know him, you love him, and he's annoyed 24/7. But we've updated the picture for Black Bull. He's taken on more of a dark approach. He's been cast aside, he's been backstabbed many a time throughout his career here in the WAM, so he has enveloped himself into the dark side, so to speak. Blue Mage, another man who has been thrown to the side and was more or less left to rot into obscurity on the roster. And you can see he's got a little bit more of a beat up look, a little bit more of a tattered mask now. He's only 23 and he's got some good stats, so he might be our main event performer, kind of the single star out of this group, despite Black Bull probably having more character name recognition behind him. Blue Mage is actually probably the best in-ring competitor out of everybody. And then of course our man Craig Bean. I love this picture, and honestly this picture is one of the things that really inspired me to want to do this stable. And so Craig Bean has changed his look a little bit. You can see this is what he was rocking previously, so it's not a total deviation away from what he was appearing as before, but clearly he's got more of a carny look, and appropriately so, considering he is now a member of the Dark Carnival. That is the newest crew, just absolutely wreaking havoc on the main event and heavyweight scene. And thank you to Sky Captain Charisma for helping me out with the pronunciation of Matsuo Hayuwata's last name. We're real closer than I kind of thought I was, so I'm going to take that. We're going to stick with the Great Matsuo for his name. One thing that I want to do with the Great Matsuo is we're going to turn him into a manager. I did go to the in-game editor and activate him as a manager role, as something that he is willing to work as. And it's largely because he does not have a great handle on speaking English. He has a basic grasp of English, but I don't think that's going to aid him very well when cutting promos or anything like that. So we're going to open him up as a manager to maybe build up some popularity through those means. We're going to see exactly just how he fits in on the roster. But again, I could not pass up these performance stats knowing that he was just chilling in free agency. And coming back to our annoyed members of the Dark Carnival, we are going to spend a character idea on Black Bull, and hopefully that improves his morale, and he goes from annoyed to irritated, so it worked out. We've got one for Bryant Hines, but it's very risky, so we are not going to be using this creative idea. As he's already annoyed, we don't want to make things any worse than they already are. However, we're actually not receiving a penalty on our backstage morale, as it is average, and we've got just enough positive influences in on the locker room to offset some of the negative ones. And funny enough, as we are getting ready to get into our next event, Black Bull turned up very late. This man has been notorious for the backstage issues and locker room incidents, and we are going to find this man, and hopefully that doesn't just turn his morale back down, as we had to spend that character idea to get it out of annoyed. Nothing noteworthy happened from it, I'll take that. And with nothing left to address, it is time to get into the Amazing Grappling Spectacle, our next event, and we have a pre-show match to get things started, and we've got 6-man tag team action to get us going. The Dark Carnival, we don't have anything in the actual show for them to be taking part of, so we're just getting them some experience, some reps here in the pre-show against Diego Bergen, Brian Hatcher, and Randy Edson. 3 heavyweights that have really fallen out of favor in terms of the roster. Diego Bergen, I don't know what happened with this man. Once we changed the product, his ratings really started to tank, and we brought in Emilio Suarez, and then his morale, it tanked, and basically his performance has just turned upside down in a really negative way from what we thought we had with Diego Bergen. So now he's just kind of been a guy on the roster floating around looking for some work, but we got him some work here. 3-on-3, Dark Carnival comes out on top, and it really wasn't that great. Nobody stood out. Craig Bean at 38, Blue Mage 38, Black Bull 35, Diego Bergen 30, Randy Edson 27, and Brian Hatcher 23. And Randy Edson and Brian Hatcher are just hanging on by their fingernails. And the only reason that they're still on the roster is because both of them have significantly positive effects on the backstage morale. And things get worse as Blue Mage had to be calmed down by the road agent after the match as he was upset that Diego Bergen almost injured him. But getting into the actual show itself, our show opens up with Elijah Mays being called down to the ring for an interview with Riker Zucker. Elijah Mays claims to have proved all that he has to after his victory over Neil Allman at the last event. Elijah Mays also demands to contend for the heavyweight championship, not the junior heavyweight championship, stating he has no interest in competing for that title. If you've been around the series, you know this is nothing new. Elijah Mays is looking to contend for the heavyweight championship. He has consistently been denied in doing so, largely in part due to the fact that he does not meet weight requirements to compete for that championship. But Elijah Mays, he has proven that he can hang with the heavyweights. He is taking down former heavyweight champions, and he feels that he has done what he needs to be called a contender. So we'll see what exactly comes out of this one. Our first match of the night is more 3-on-3 tag team action. There's not a ton of story behind this one, but we had to get our boys involved. We had to get some big names involved, or else they were just going to be sitting on the sidelines. We got the Wellington Dynasty, Chuck and Duke Wellington alongside Bronson Fraley picking up the victory over Joel Cartwright, Neil Allman, and Woodrow Gunter. And Neil Allman would actually be the one to take the loss here. Neil Allman has been on a bit of a skid, and it has not been the best year in 1930 for Neil Allman so far. He is the class of this match, as he had an in-ring performance of 52, Cartwright at 44, Gunter at 45, and then Bronson Fraley, of course, at 40, Duke at 31, and Chuck at 28. Altogether, we get a segment rating of 37. Emilio and Gabriela Suarez are in the ring, celebrating their victory at the Frank Norris Memorial Show and ridiculing Hermenegildo Ramirez for trusting Gabriela to begin with. Emilio would go on to claim that he will never lose the Junior Heavyweight Championship, citing his over a year-long title reign with the most defenses in Wham history. Segment rating of 47, the Suarez siblings just back on their bullshit, once again soaking in their deception, but also their championship victory, as Emilio Suarez was able to slither his way out of a very tough competitor in Hermenegildo Ramirez. We get a segment rating of 47, and we're going to move on. And unfortunately, Albie Dewberry was extremely off of his game. This is the lowest in-ring performance that we've seen from Albie Dewberry in quite a while. But we would get a one-on-one match with Hermenegildo Ramirez and Albie Dewberry, and we wanted them to steal the show. They did not. We only got a segment rating of 34, although Hermenegildo Ramirez did do his thing out of 49. But not the best show, but this is an official #1 contendership match. So yes, exactly. Hermenegildo once again has named himself #1 contender for Emilio Suarez's championship, and we are right back to where we started a month ago with this. Hermenegildo Ramirez is not done with the Junior Heavyweight Championship chase that he is on right now, and damn it, he may just figure out a way to take care of the Suarez siblings. But we know that Albie Dewberry got a victory over Joe Cartwright at the Frank Norris Memorial Show. That's what brought him to the forefront. And of course, Hermenegildo Ramirez coming out on top. So we will see Ramirez, Suarez. What is it, 3 now? The third time that these two will face off for the championship, but we've got something up our sleeve, so just stay tuned. And once again, not the strongest match in this next contest. We got JP Cromwell making his return to in-ring action, and unfortunately he only gets an in-ring performance of 27, and we may not be seeing him too much longer if he's going to be turning in these kind of performances. Turner Spittler gets an in-ring performance of 38. He had a really nice performance with Woodrow Gunter at our last event, and he scored a big victory, and after another victory over JP Cromwell, he has a segment with Riker Zucker. We would hear Turner Spittler claim that he has proven Woodrow Gunter as a fraud, who has done nothing but steal money, showing clear jealousy of Gunter's heightened pay rate. Turner Spittler would express his confidence in himself that given his championship tenure, he will be the one to become the next heavyweight champion. So Turner Spittler just putting himself over a little bit, acknowledging that Woodrow Gunter is the highest paid member of the Wham, and he's basically calling him a fraud, calling him a thief, stating that he is stealing money with that heightened paycheck. So we got the victory over Woodrow Gunter, but maybe there are still issues on the table between these two. But all in all, we just get a segment rating of 29. Turner Spiller's got to improve his popularity before we see his promos really wow anybody by any means. We do manage to turn in a good match for our main event, and we get Friedrich Herzog and Masked Hammer. Fortunately for us, these two have pretty good chemistry, and we got a bonus for that there. The main attraction of the heavyweight champion, the spectacle that is the world's strongest man, Friedrich Herzog, he picks up a big dominant victory over Masked Hammer, who had an in-ring performance of 35, whereas our champion had an in-ring performance of 50. This was a non-title match, and it was just another way to get our heavyweight champion in the ring. And if you remember from the last event, the main event was supposed to be a 3-on-3 tag team match between the Pride and the Dark Carnival. However, the Dark Carnival would meticulously take out the members of the Pride, leaving a 1-on-3 handicap match for the end of the night, which Friedrich Herzog could not overcome, suffering his first loss in a very long time. And after his match, Friedrich Herzog, clearly still shaken from the events that took place last month, shows his rage as he screams out to the Dark Carnival, demanding their presence. However, there is no answer as the show comes to a close, so Friedrich Herzog looking for some kind of resolution with the Dark Carnival. However, he gets none here, segment rating of 57, and that will in fact end our show. And overall rating of 45, not bad. We've been sitting in this kind of state of 43 to 47s for our shows. We want to get up to that 50. We've only had 150 in all of 1929. We got to cross that hump, so to speak. But all in all, a pretty good show, despite some of our matches coming up just a little lackluster. So not a bad show all in all. We made some money. Our popularity did not change, but that is all right. Obviously, Albie Dewberry was off of his game in our last event. However, he is annoyed, and that is putting a damper onto his match performances. We're going to give him a creative idea. We've only got one that was worth keeping, and hopefully it was a failure. That is not what we want. His momentum has dropped, and now he's still annoyed, so not what we're looking for. And if we can't get his morale improved soon, we might just have to resort to some monetary incentives. And a little bit of juicy information here. Kuni Hashiguchi and JP Cromwell have split up, and this may be the dagger in JP Cromwell's time with the Wham. If he's not providing a positive morale boost to the locker room with his relationship, and he is turning in in-ring performances of 27 or sub-30s at all, even with his large stature, I'm not sure if JP Cromwell is going to have a place here on the Wham roster. And just looking at it, it's an ongoing contract. I am going to change it. We're going to change it up to either 6 months or 1 appearance, and whatever one happens first will be his final contributions to the Wham. Now, as we get ready for this next event, the Amazing Grappling Spectacle 65, once again, we've got the hardline stance as an option, and given the boost that it gives to the entire morale backstage, I've got to go for it. However, it does raise the risk that someone might walk out, and we've done this a few times and I've just kind of clicked it and done it, whatever, but I've got a feeling that we might want to watch this one. Fortunately, I'm full of it. Nobody chose to walk out, and I'm grateful for that. And that is because we've got a big episode of the Amazing Grappling Spectacle 65 here, and a pre-show match is going to get us started. We've got some tag team action. Neil Allman teaming alongside the Great Matsuo, going 2-on-2 with the Dark Carnival, Black Bull, and Craig Bean. Not a bad match here. The Great Matsuo was struggling, but he had a great partner to struggle alongside him. Great Matsuo had an in-ring performance of 18, Neil Allman at 57. However, Neil Allman and Matsuo would come up on the losing end after Black Bull pinned Matsuo. Black Bull had an in-ring performance of 36, and Craig Bean had an in-ring performance of 39. Now, our storyline technically advanced, though there is no story behind this match. This is just a pre-show match to keep Neil Allman on the card because we didn't have anything for him, to get Matsuo some exposure, and to allow the Dark Carnival to continue to build some momentum. Got a segment rating of 38, better than what we had last month. And our show gets started with a match between Elijah Mays and Albie Dewberry. And Elijah Mays would come out on top, though he would come out on top via disqualification, and the fans absolutely hated that. And this is the drawback to the product that we are rolling with, is the fans do not appreciate disqualification, tainted endings, cheap endings, any kind of funkiness to go on at the end of the matches, and unfortunately, we do quite a bit of that. But it's just the start of the show. Our first match of the night isn't going to totally ruin us, I don't think. However, with the names that we have in this contest, we should be getting better segment ratings than 28. Elijah Mays had an in-ring performance of 44 and Dewberry had an in-ring performance of 36. Dewberry's still in a bit of a funk. However, I've got faith that if we can improve his morale, we will be able to see the Dewberry of old come back. And we've got a two-part segment, and unfortunately, I have not figured out the most ideal way to roll out these multi-parted segments, but we have Bronson Fraley being the one to end the previous match by attacking Elijah Mays and causing that disqualification, causing the ref to claim victory for Elijah Mays. Elijah Mays would put up a fight, but his match depleted his energy and was unable to overcome the numbers of the Wellington dynasty. So Bronson Fraley would do a number on Elijah Mays after Elijah Mays continues his defiance that he's been showing ever since he's come to the WAM. And Chuck Wellington would then grab the mic and tell Elijah Mays that he doesn't call the shots around here. The Wellington heir would then taunt the MMA fighter before reminding him the weight that his last name carries. Elijah Mays has slightly crossed paths and rubbed shoulders with Bronson Fraley, though not to any kind of significant extent. If you remember, they had some interesting fallout during the Derby, but now we seem to be uncovering a new chapter with these guys. Now moving into our next match, we've got Emilio Suarez defending his junior heavyweight championship once more against Hermenegildo Ramirez. These two have faced off quite a few times, one-on-one for this championship, and for one reason or another, some kind of shenanigan continues to get in the way of Hermenegildo Ramirez capturing that championship, and it happens yet again here. However, you can't even blame the ending of this match on shenanigans. Now you see that Emilio Suarez defeated Hermenegildo by pinfall after a distraction from Kuni Hashiguchi. Now you may wonder just how Kuni Hashiguchi got her way out there. Now Gabriela Suarez has been a thorn in the side of any challenger to Emilio Suarez's junior heavyweight championship, and Kuni Hashiguchi came out to play equalizer, and she would actually end up taking Gabriela Suarez out of the match entirely. The two ladies would start brawling, and they would make their way up the entrance ramp. However, Hermenegildo Ramirez was distracted just enough after seeing all of this commotion, all of this happening, and Emilio Suarez was able to capitalize and secure a victory. Hermenegildo Ramirez would hype up Kuni Hashiguchi or whatever. He would see what's going down. He'd be ecstatic, though while he was taking a look at what was happening, Emilio Suarez would hit a swift kick to the back of the head of Hermenegildo Ramirez, dazing him and stunning him just enough for Emilio to capture the 1-2-3 and successfully defend his junior heavyweight championship for an 8th time. We've got some great numbers here. Emilio Suarez at 51 for his in-ring performance, Hermenegildo Ramirez at 54. However, due to the distraction, our segment rating falls at 48, which I know it would be better had we not get penalized for that. But all in all, we would see Hermenegildo Ramirez for the 3rd time come up short in a one-on-one opportunity. And you probably thought, since we were giving him another chance, that he was going to come out on top this time. No sirree. Nope. Emilio Suarez continuing his historic reign of the junior heavyweight championship. And this is just a bit of a continuation from Gabriela and Kuni. We would see Gabriela Suarez and Kuni Hashiguchi continue their altercation despite the match coming to an end. Kuni Hashiguchi would gain the upper hand until Emilio would come out and separate the two. Gabriela definitely got the worst of the exchange, though the successful title defense was clearly the intent, as she began laughing in the face of Kuni Hashiguchi, and the siblings were satisfied with their handiwork as they made their way to the back. Just a segment rating of 22, Kuni Hashiguchi does not have any popularity in the Mid-South, so introducing her is going to be a challenge, even though she's got really good in-ring capabilities. But moving on, we've got heavyweight competition, and we get a segment rating of 36 despite a wrestling rating of 42, so something is working against us here. But Turner Spittler would come out on top over Sebastian Morales, a former heavyweight champion Sebastian Morales, with a quick roll-up. And what he would really be doing, I wanted to go for a tainted victory. However, knowing the product, it was going to give us an even worse segment rating than what we were already headed towards. So Turner Spittler, he pulls off a roll-up on Sebastian Morales, but he pulls the tights, he uses the ropes for leverage, the ref doesn't catch it, and Turner Spittler shies his way into a victory over another formidable heavyweight. And while the match would end, somewhat cleanly without any kind of major shenanigans. We would see a segment come after the match. Following Turner Spittler's dishonorable victory, Woodrow Gunter rushes the ring. Gunter and Spittler wasted no time and immediately began brawling with one another on sight. The two would trade fists and strikes until members of the locker room came out to separate the two. Just continuation of this rivalry, this physical, almost blood sport type rivalry between Turner Spittler and Woodrow Gunter, where these two guys are just beating each other up, taking part in physical matches and altercations. And we see more of the same, although just a segment rating of 31, not exactly what we're hoping for out of these two, but it is passable and it does advance this storyline. Now, moving into the main event of the evening, unfortunately, a poor match, which is really going to hurt our total show rating. I don't think we're going to have a great show rating for this one, but we see Blue Mage going one-on-one with Fritz Hattendorf, winning the match with a big leg drop. And I'm thinking of this now, but I should have put that junior heavyweight championship match in the main event, but I totally didn't, and I screwed up, and I'm going to pay for it. But we would see Blue Mage going one-on-one with Fritz Hattendorf. There was a stipulation that everyone was barred from ringside for this match. Do not pay attention to Bryant Hines being ringside because I just forgot to take him off the manager for this match. But all members of the Dark Carnival, all members of the Pride were barred from the ring area for this match. We needed to see a one-on-one contest with Blue Mage, which I believe this was his first bit of action one-on-one since the formation of the Dark Carnival. We've seen them in a handicap or tag team scenarios almost exclusively. But I digress. A main event with two guys that aren't super popular, but it is vital to the story. Blue Mage, Fritz Hattendorf. Blue Mage comes out on top, segment rating 29. Blue Mage at 32 in the ring, Fritz Hattendorf at 27. And as the match came to an end, Friedrich Herzog came to rush the ring and get a bit of revenge on the Dark Carnival. However, just before he made contact with the Dark Outcasts, the lights were cut. And when the lights returned, the Dark Carnival was gone and Herzog was left furious. So we almost saw a full-strength stable of the Pride clashing with the full-strength stable of the Dark Carnival. It is something that we're almost inevitably headed towards now that everyone is active and healthy, and you can't do abductions every single month, every single show if you're the Dark Carnival. They're going to have to own up to their actions sooner or later and face this team of big, strong men. So we just get a segment rating of 36 to finish the show. I'm not super excited to see what our show rating is. It's probably going to be 38, I'm guessing. Even worse, 34. Really bad show, honestly, comparatively. Really bad show for where we should be at. However, our popularity is still so low that this, in comparison, is a good show for our company, so it works out. But a really poor main event, in all honesty. I didn't structure this card very well. Turner Spittler and Sebastian Morales, I thought we'd get a better rating for that one, though I think it is Turner Spittler's lack of popularity in the Mid-South. We had some finishes that really turned the fans off as well, so things to learn from, but I felt like it was vital for the story, and I was willing to take that risk. We're going to praise Albie Dewberry and Black Bull. You see that we still made $881 on this show, so even with a poor show, we're making money and we are gaining popularity, moving up from 27 to 28. And a little bit of contract information, we did sign Fritz Hattendorf to a 1-year exclusive handshake deal as his contract was coming to an end, so now we locked him up. He's going to be exclusive to the WAM for the next year. And a little bit more of backstage tea, Sebastian Morales and Gabriela Suarez have split up, so that relationship was rather short-lived. And it is worth noting that Sebastian Morales is El Campeón over in Viva La Lucha. He's been champ over there for over a year, nearly 2 years, and he's had 14 successful title defenses, and you can see there's some serious championship lineage here in Viva La Lucha. However, we're going to have to see, now that he is no longer dating the owner's sister, we'll have to see what happens with Sebastian Morales in Viva La Lucha, as this is the only man that we've got that is actively traveling from Mexico to America to work for two different companies, two top companies at that. And I'm excited to get into this one because we've got some major stuff going down here, but this pre-show match is not so major. We've got Oscar Kohler getting back in the ring. We need to get this man some work because he's got some potential. He's got a great frame. He's got a good look, and he's a part of a main event stable, but the man's only getting in-ring performances at 17, so we got to get him some reps. This pre-show match between JP Cromwell and Oscar Kohler is actually going to be JP Cromwell's final appearance here in the WHAM, and he does the JOB to Oscar Kohler. So thank you for your contributions, JP Cromwell, and I hope you find success in the other companies, but just it ain't gonna be here, brother. We've got another pre-show match, a 2-on-4 handicap match. It's supposed to be a tag team match, but you know how the Wellingtons roll. We've got Albie Dewberry and the Great Matsuo teaming up against Bronson Fraley and the Wellington brothers, and you hate to see it. Albie Dewberry sustained a shattered knee in a match that didn't matter. My goodness, that is unfortunate. We're gonna have to see how long he's gonna be out for, but I can imagine it's going to be a rather lengthy amount of time, and we'll see if Albie Dewberry can ever return to form, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's at least go over with these numbers. Every single one of the Wellington brothers seemed off of his game in this, and that's unfortunate. Dewberry had an in-ring performance of 37, Matsuo 21, Bronson Fraley 42, Angus 17, Chuck 28, and Duke 29. So we're just going to have to see the full consequences of this absolute throwaway match, totally upending our junior heavyweight division, but I digress. We'll see what happens. Now to get into the actual show, we've got Christopher Hartwell, and he is fired up and wants a chance to speak to not just the crowd, but management in the back as well. Christopher Hartwell takes a moment to acknowledge the state of the junior heavyweight division, stating he is tired of seeing the same three guys challenge Emilio Suarez and fail, referring to Joel Cartwright, Albie Dewberry, and Hermenegildo Ramirez. However, he's not going to have to worry about seeing Albie Dewberry challenge anytime soon. Christopher Hartwell claims it's time to give a chance to somebody, anybody, other than the same losers we see every month. Hartwell would continue on with his tangent until Joel Cartwright made his way to the ring and challenged Christopher Hartwell to back up his talk. So Christopher Hartwell saying what everybody's thinking. Emilio Suarez has been going through the same few challengers almost entirely in succession, and Christopher Hartwell is tired of seeing it. And not only do we get this little bit of acknowledgement, but we're going to have a major announcement that will address that directly. But we get a segment rating of 24, largely due to Christopher Hartwell having extremely poor morale, momentum, and not great popularity in the Mid-South. But the match would get a segment rating of 36, still not great. Joel Cartwright usually getting much better numbers than a 36 in a match rating. However, Christopher Hartwell down there at 26, Joel Cartwright did his part at 43. And I actually left the winner of this match up to the road agent, and Christopher Hartwell would come away with a big victory over Joel Cartwright, as Joel Cartwright has a little bit of a losing streak himself, much like someone else on the roster. But just a segment rating of 36 here, not the best rating for when we're trying to steal the show, but it had to be done, and this was the most fitting time for it to be done. Now we got a tag team match between Turner Spittler, Masked Hammer, taking on Neil Allman and Woodrow Gunter. Now this screen does not tell the whole story. Let's go over the numbers and we'll unpack everything. Segment rating of 34, not the best for these guys. You'd like to see better with some potential main eventers, an established main eventer, and an up-and-comer in Masked Hammer. But Neil Allman in-ring performance of 50, Woodrow Gunter 38, Turner Spittler 35, and Masked Hammer at 30. Turner Spittler and Masked Hammer would actually come away victorious when Masked Hammer pinned Neil Allman with a surprise cradle. And what went down is Turner Spittler and Woodrow Gunter would actually take themselves out of this match entirely, and Neil Allman and Masked Hammer would end up being one-on-one, mano-a-mano for the last better half of this match. And Neil Allman, the man that is in quite the funk, continues his losing streak, and Masked Hammer picks up a big victory. And our segment rating of 34 here, I would imagine that gets hindered because Neil Allman, we had to keep him strong, we had to keep him looking good so he wasn't furious at the way that this match went, because he is a major star. Masked Hammer is just more of a recognizable guy on our roster. But all in all, good performance of Neil Allman here. You'd like to see some better performances from the other guys though. But that would spill into this next segment where we have Woodrow Gunter and Turner Spittler. They continue to brawl away from the ring after the match came to an end, showing the outcome of the tag team match no longer was any of their concern. The two would once again continue their skirmish until members of the locker room and security separated the two. Just a segment rating of 30 here, and you know the bad blood between Spittler and Gunter is well documented at this point. Now we get a big 45 rating for an historic match in the history of the WAM. We would see Gabriela Suarez and Kunihashi Gucci compete in-ring competition for the very first time. Women have officially made their way into the WAM. I'm not going to get into what the women's division is going to look like right now because that's not the focus, but let's talk about this tag team match. We would see Hermenegildo Ramirez and Kunihashi Gucci gain a slight bit of revenge over Emilio Suarez and Gabriela Suarez when Kunihashi Gucci scored the pin over Gabriela. And Emilio and Hermenegildo had good performances, 47 for Emilio, 52 for Ramirez, but Gabriela Suarez at 36 and Kunihashi Gucci at 37, not bad for the first time they're getting in the ring in the WAM. Now, Kunihashi Gucci is becoming a bit of an established women's competitor around the world, but Gabriela Suarez is exclusive to the WAM, so this is her first taste of competition. Good, strong segment rating of 45. You'd like to see it, and I'm very, very pleased with how that match went. We really needed a strong match on this card. And moving into this next segment, another important announcement as Riker Zucker, on behalf of Barnabas Beef Wellington, announces that the WAM will introduce a new match concept as well as a brand new major event in just a few weeks' time. The Glory Gauntlet match and event is introduced. Riker Zucker explains the rules of the Glory Gauntlet, exclusive to the junior heavyweights, where two men will start in the ring and a gauntlet is ran where the winner will be crowned the junior heavyweight champion. The competitors in the ring will compete under standard rules, and a new competitor will enter upon elimination until one man is left standing. Riker Zucker states that not only Elijah Mays will be forced to compete in this match as he is a junior heavyweight, but in order to receive a bypass into the heavyweight division, Elijah Mays will need to capture the junior heavyweight championship first. So, Barnabas Beef Wellington overriding the rules and the wishes of kind of every heavyweight in the entire roster, but behind the scenes, Barnabas Beef Wellington is basically giving Elijah Mays a clear-cut chance to enter contention for the heavyweight championship, but he says you've got to prove yourself officially amongst the junior heavyweights, and you got to become junior heavyweight champion. So Riker Zucker, his delivery needs improvement, so we just get a segment rating at 32 here. And then you see Elijah Mays would make an appearance at the curtain, and Riker Zucker would immediately leave the ring and get out of harm's way through the crowd. If this is not your first episode, you know that Elijah Mays has caused some serious pain to Riker Zucker, so this is just a little nod to that. Moving on into our main event, we've got a tag team main event, and we get a solid rating for it as well, 40 for what it could be. Friedrich Herzog and Fritz Hattendorf have gotten in the ring against the Dark Carnival, Black Bull, and Craig Bean. No Blue Mage here. Fritz Hattendorf in-ring performance of 34, Friedrich Herzog at 55, Craig Bean and Black Bull both get 37s as the Pride, Friedrich Herzog and Fritz Hattendorf gain the victory and a little bit of revenge on the men that have been causing them some serious problems. Now, we tried to use a creative finish. It did not pay off for us, so we would have gotten even better rating than 40 had that creative finish not been a failure, even though it was a near certainty, but, whatever. Friedrich Herzog carried the match in terms of in-ring performance, obviously with a 55. Everyone else was a sub 40, and that just shows that he is our heavyweight champion, and he is the man. So we do get a little bit of momentum built back up for the Pride. They ain't no bitches now, but the Dark Carnival have employed a strategy that has been unseen before in the entire industry of wrestling, and it is really turning into that sports entertainment style, not entirely, but we're seeing some flashes of that start to peek through. But like I said, segment rating of 40 for the main event, and you love to see that, but we do get another segment to end this thing off. After the match, the Pride began to celebrate, finally getting a bit of revenge on the Dark Carnival. However, this celebration would be short-lived. The lights began to flicker, eventually going out entirely. When they returned, Herzog's boys were gone, though he was not alone. Blue Mage was standing in the ring, face to face with the man who had done him wrong. Herzog was taken back, but stood his ground, making for an intense confrontation. The lights would once again briefly cut out, and when they returned, Herzog found himself alone, mystified from his looming contender. So just a segment rating of 36, not super surprising. We're still trying to build up the popularity of everyone in the Dark Carnival, and none of these guys involved in the main event, this little storyline right now, have amazing performance skills or anything like that. So we just get a segment rating of 36 to finish off the show, and another poor show, all things considered, for where we should be at. If we're getting less than 40, I'm really unhappy with the overall rating of the show. So we might have to just take a deeper look into some of the morale, some of the momentum, and some of the things going on with some of our matches, because I think we should be a little bit higher with where we're at, but I digress. Also, we're going to have to check out the injury of Albie Dewberry, but we're going to come up on that here in just a moment. We're going to praise Black Bull and Turner Spittler. Albie Dewberry is going to be out for over 410 days. Depending on how his surgery goes, we're going to opt into that, of course, but that is a huge blow. We are going to be missing Albie Dewberry for a very, very long time. However, we do gain just over $1,000 from the show. Our ticket sales are really starting to look good. And JP Cromwell has officially left the WAM, and Albie Dewberry is going to be out for over a year. Man, that is tough. And we are definitely going to take the chance to perform this surgery on Albie Dewberry to lessen the duration that he's going to be out, and also lessen the lasting effect that it will have. Of course, if it fails, then it's going to really backfire on us. But 410 days is a long time, and I would love that actually, to lessen that. So let's see what we can do. This is surgery in the 1930s. It has been deemed a complete success from a shattered knee. Way to go, boys. You'd love to see it, and that actually bumps it down from 409 days to 327 days. So Albie Dewberry has decreased his time on the shelf by about 80 days, so that's great. We've also got Blue Mage at an annoyed state of morale and a chilly momentum. We're going to feed him a creative idea, and hopefully that will improve. It was a success. He does at least improve his momentum, because this man has got a big match coming up at our next event. And as a matter of fact, I am going to actually give him a bonus. Let's try $200 and see if that helps. It didn't help enough. We're going to try one more at 100. He's still annoyed. I would love to see this man improve his morale, but I don't think it's going to happen before our next show, which is unfortunate. And given that we've got a big Glory Gauntlet event and match involving a great number of junior heavyweights, we've got to make some signings. And the first one we're going to take a look at is Super Monkey. This man is 21 years old, and he's from Viva La Lucha. We've almost got a partnership with Viva La Lucha, but they don't like us enough. But this man has got some really good technical skills, some solid physical ability. I think he's got the chance to benefit us not only with his ability in the ring, but also his class clown personality type. And we're just going to roll with one appearance for this contract. I don't think he's going to be swayed to move over here, even if he does well, because he is employed with Viva La Lucha. We've also got Princeton Willard here, 24 years old. He's got some solid performance abilities, okay brawling and technical stats. He's got some potential to have some decent performances, I think. Let's bring him on. Just one appearance for this man, and we'll see how it goes. Another guy that I'm looking at here is Chris Brownfield, 22 years old, really strong performance abilities, not too bad in the primary sector, and decent fundamental and physical stats as well. And all of these guys do have positive effects on our backstage morale. And Chris Brownfield, I'm actually going to send him a contract for 3 appearances, because I've got some hopes for this one. And we're also going to make a play to bring back our boy RT Lincoln, who seems to be happy to sign with us once more, assuming the terms are all what everyone is looking for. And we're going to send RT Lincoln a 3 appearance contract as well. And last but not least, we're going to send a contract offer for 1 appearance to our boy Fumihiko Onoda. And we see Princeton Willard be the first one to accept his contract terms. And then we got Super Monkey, Chris Brownfield, RT Lincoln, and Fumihiko Onoda all following suit and accepting their contracts as well. Now, getting into our next show, I don't show these every single time, but I thought this one was funny. Angus Wellington was brought to the wrestler's court, accused of moaning about stuff all the time and bumming everyone else out. The judge, Friedrich Herzog, found him guilty and sentenced him to shut up or cheer up, and to buy drinks for everyone after the show. I love that. That is so Angus Wellington. And without further ado, it's time to present the very first edition of the Glory Gauntlet. Not just the event, but the match itself as well. And to open up our night, we've got a pre-show match a 3-team tag team match between the Dark Carnival, the Pride, and then some fellows who deserve to be on the card even though we don't have them on the main show. We've got the Dark Carnival, Black Bull and Craig Bean coming out on top over the Pride, Fritz Hattendorf and Oscar Kohler and Diego Bergen and Masked Hammer. Craig Bean and Black Bull got the victory, deservedly so, as they had the best ratings in the match. Craig Bean at 41, Black Bull at 40. We gotta change that man's gimmick. I keep forgetting to change his gimmick. Oscar Kohler up at 27, a good improvement from the last time we saw him. Fritz Hattendorf at 33, Masked Hammer at 37, and Diego Bergen at 33. So not bad performances. These boys are hyped up and inspired in the locker room. So it's good to see a little bit of that payoff and get some good ratings here. Moving on to the actual show. We've got Neil Allman with a booming rating of 74. This man is money on the mic. He opens up the show with a determined look on his face. Neil Allman acknowledges the losing streak he's been on and vows to turn things around. Neil Allman would then lay an open challenge to anyone on the roster, and it was not long before his challenger came to the ring. So let me just talk for a moment. Neil Allman getting 74s with these promos is ridiculous, and we know his performance stats are on point. Like me, myself, I gotta find ways to get him on the mic more often because it is so refreshing to see that green number, because it's been slow and steady with this database and this save so far, and we're getting there, but we're not used to those normal good ratings that most saves in most games experience. But I digress. I'm getting a little distracted here. A great segment here from Neil Allman, and we get a good match between he and Sebastian Morales. However, Sebastian Morales actually sustains a sprained ankle, and we only get a segment rating of 39 despite Sebastian Morales with an in-ring performance of 51 and Neil Allman at 61. So this really brought us down. Obviously the crowd rating wasn't that great, but the wrestling rating kind of makes me believe it should have been a little bit better. So checking out the dirt sheet, we weren't even penalized that much, as Neil Allman was penalized for his stamina, and then of course the match was disrupted by injury. And it says the negative impact on the road agent notes being used, and it was really just to keep Neil Allman strong, so that does make sense there. Because Neil Allman was not happy about the way that this match went down, because he did in fact take another loss from Sebastian Morales. But moving on, not the match rating we were hoping for, but there's nothing we can do about it now except for hope we get better ratings moving forward. And we do not get a better rating moving forward, unfortunately. We get Woodrow Gunter and Turner Spittler once again back in action, and this is a submission match, so the physicality continues between these two. This time, Woodrow Gunter getting the leg up on Turner Spittler, and we see another segment rating of 37 here, and the segment rating was penalized, another instance of having to keep our man Turner Spittler strong because he was not happy with the way that this match went down. And that was actually probably the trend of this whole show, is competitors not happy with the way the match went down. But as you can see here, this rivalry is going to continue a little bit longer as Woodrow Gunter and Turner Spittler continue to duke it out. But our next match, the very first female one-on-one match between Gabriela Suarez and Kuni Hashiguchi, is a great success. Segment rating of 42 here. Kuni at 43, Gabriela at 36. These ladies put in a great match, and Gabriela Suarez would be the one to come out on top against Kuni Hashiguchi. So segment rating of 42, great job ladies, they had the best match of the night so far. But that would be upended by our heavyweight championship match, and Blue Mage, he had a big match and he delivered. He didn't have the best in-ring performance himself. Friedrich Herzog really had a great performance, but Blue Mage did not bring this match down, and for that, I'm proud of you. We get a segment rating of 52 here in this heavyweight championship match. However, Blue Mage, despite all the mind games, everything that led up to it, we do not see a victory for Blue Mage. Friedrich Herzog does successfully defend his championship against the man that he cast aside. In that instance was one of the catalysts of the formation of the Dark Carnival. So, all in all, great match, great work by both competitors, but Friedrich Herzog, truly a class performance at a 59 in-ring performance. Fritz Hattendorf, good work ringside. Bryant Hines, good work ringside. So we did have some things working for us here. And now moving into the Glory Gauntlet, the biggest match in terms of contestants and participants in the history of the WAM. Now this is a gauntlet style match. This is not a battle royal. We would have 2 men start the match, and incrementally guys would be eliminated and a new competitor would come out. So let me paint the picture just a little bit here for you. We would start with Elijah Mays and Chris Brownfield. Elijah Mays would make quick work of Brownfield, eliminating the new face, the newcomer, and you can see down there that he was actually rusty, so that hurt his performance. But Elijah Mays would run the gauntlet. We know that if he wants to compete for the heavyweight championship, he has got to win the junior heavyweight championship first. So he eliminates Chris Brownfield, and then we see the return of Fumihiko Onoda, who promptly gets his ass beat. And then we would see Wayne Blankenship, former junior heavyweight champion Wayne Blankenship, come out. And then RT Lincoln. All these guys are just getting their ass handed to them by Elijah Mays. It's not a total squash. You know, they do put up a fight. You can see Elijah Mays, it's starting to wear on him. But overall, Elijah Mays just handles these guys. Super Monkey appears from Viva La Lucha. I would imagine that he had a nice performance. And then Christopher Hartwell, and then things start to ramp up with Hermenegildo Ramirez. And all of these entries are at random in canon. Obviously, I had an idea of how this was going to be set up, but in story, it's totally random. Hermenegildo Ramirez would come in. He would have a good performance against Elijah Mays, but he would also be taken out. Emilio Suarez, junior heavyweight champion, without Gabriella at his side. He would also be taken out after a really good performance between he and Elijah Mays, and Joel Cartwright would be the one to win the first ever Glory Gauntlet match and walk out of this one as the new junior heavyweight champion. So overall, good rating at 47, not bad for this match, but a monumental historic match with a new junior heavyweight champion. The historic reign of Emilio Suarez has finally come to an end. And Elijah Mays did not get eliminated entirely clean, and we would see Bronson Fraley come in causing distraction, ultimately sabotaging Elijah Mays. Joel Cartwright, the competitor that he is, he's not necessarily looking to cheat, but he's going to do what he's got to do to secure a victory and secure that championship. So Joel Cartwright, you know, it's the spirit of competition. It's what he had to do to become champion. He didn't necessarily do Elijah Mays dirty, but, you know, like I said, got to do what you got to do to become champ. Bronson Fraley and Elijah Mays would then have a heated exchange, and the Wellington brothers would pull Bronson Fraley, their personal protector, away from the situation to end out our show as Joel Cartwright celebrated his championship victory. So all in all, we get a show rating of 50. This is finally what we were looking for, though we were looking for over 50 technically, but we do get back to 50. A strong showing for a big event. We are in front of 259 people. I had the tickets at very cheap to hopefully expedite our popularity gain. So great show here, and let's check out a few more of the numbers. We gotta praise Blue Mage and Elijah Mays, of course. Blue Mage pleased and Elijah Mays seems pleased. Now, a little sidebar here. Elijah Mays was furious with not winning this Glory Gauntlet match, so we're going to have to see exactly what happens with him. Hopefully he doesn't just walk out. Hopefully we've got an opportunity to keep him, you know, somewhat afloat as far as morale goes. He is happy as of right now, but I don't want to lose him, but I also don't want him winning the Junior Heavyweight Championship right now. Sebastian Morales sprained his ankle, out for 7 days, but that is not significant to us. We do gain $2,331 in ticket sales from this show, so the decision to go with the very cheap tickets may not be too bad, as we do still get a good profit of $900, despite shelling out the highest bill for our workers that we have had to do so far, but we're still at 28 popularity, so hopefully we can move up quickly. As some of these junior heavyweights leave the WAM, we may be seeing Super Monkey back. I kind of want to see what he can do in the ring. But this has been a huge episode. We see a big title change. The Junior Heavyweight Championship has finally changed hands, and Joel Cartwright has got a second opportunity to have a better Junior Heavyweight Championship reign than his first. As you can see here, he had 0 successful defenses last time he was champion, and we will see if he can do better this time around. But Friedrich Herzog, still the heavyweight champion, came out strong against Blue Mage with a successful championship defense, faced his fears, that is, the Dark Carnival. We had the Glory Gauntlet crown a victor for the very first time, and that was Joe Cartwright. And then of course we still got the Wellington brothers at a huge tag team championship reign, though they are not featured super heavily, and that is kind of by design on their end. But that is going to do it for us here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Huge shout out to those subscribed to the Real One tier on Patreon. You guys are awesome, and your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you to all the other Patreon members, and thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.